Marcus Chen had been cleaning the corridors of Kepler Station for 3 years, and in that time, he'd seen every species the galaxy had to offer track mud, slime, and worse across his freshly mopped floors. The pay was decent, the work was honest, and nobody bothered him much. That was exactly how he liked it. The station orbited a contested world where diplomatic meetings took place between the major galactic powers. Representatives from the Zephyrian Empire, the Silicon Collective, and dozens of smaller species came and went daily. Marcus knew them all by the mess they left behind. It was during the third shift, when the corridors were mostly empty, that Marcus heard the sound. A soft whimpering echoed from behind a maintenance panel near the diplomatic quarters. He paused, mop in hand, listening. The sound came again, weak, desperate. Marcus had always been curious to a fault. His ex-wife used, to say it would get him killed someday. He pried open the maintenance panel and peered inside. What he found defied explanation. A creature no larger than his fist lay curled in the narrow space between pipes. Its scales shimmered with an opalescent sheen, cycling through colors like oil on water. Delicate wings, translucent as soap bubbles, twitched weakly. The tiny dragon, for that's what it unmistakably was, fixed him with eyes like liquid starlight. Marcus had heard whispers about dragons in the outer sectors. Ancient beings of immense power who rarely interacted with the younger species. Most considered them myths, yet here was a hatchling, clearly dying, hidden in his station's walls. The creature's breathing was labored, its scales dulling to a sickly gray. Without thinking, Marcus reached in and gently lifted it. The hatchling was cold, far too cold, and weighed almost nothing. "Easy there, little one," Marcus whispered, cradling the dragon against his chest. "Let's get you somewhere warm." He abandoned his cleaning cart and hurried to his small quarters. The hatchling barely stirred as Marcus wrapped it in a thermal blanket and placed it under his desk lamp. Its eyes had closed, and Marcus could barely detect the rise and fall of its tiny chest. Marcus knew nothing about dragon physiology, but he understood distress. He filled a small dish with warm water and used a cloth to drip moisture onto the creature's lips. The hatchling's tongue, no bigger than a grain of rice, flickered out weakly. For the next 6 hours, Marcus stayed awake, monitoring the tiny dragon. He researched everything he could find about dragon-like species on the station's database, which wasn't much. He tried different temperatures, different positions, even hummed softly when the creature seemed restless. As dawn broke through the artificial day cycle, the hatchling stirred. Its scales began to shimmer again, cycling through deep purples and blues. The tiny eyes opened, fixing on Marcus with what seemed like recognition. "There you are," Marcus said softly. "Feeling better?" The hatchling made a sound like wind chimes, in a gentle breeze. It struggled to its feet on unsteady legs and looked up at Marcus with unmistakable gratitude. Over the next 3 days, Marcus nursed the creature back to health. He learned it preferred warm milk supplemented with mineral supplements from the hydroponics bay. It seemed to understand his words, tilting its head when he spoke and responding with those musical chirps. On the 4th day, Marcus knew he had to let it go. The hatchling was strong enough to fly short distances and had grown noticeably larger. More importantly, he'd noticed security drones scanning the corridors more frequently. Someone was looking for something. "You can't stay here, little friend," Marcus said, holding the dragon for what he knew would be the last time. "Your family must be worried sick." He carried the hatchling to one of the outer observation decks. The tiny dragon perched on his shoulder, nuzzling against his neck in a way that made Marcus's chest tight. "Go on," he urged. "Go home." The hatchling chirped once, a sound Marcus somehow understood as "thank you." Then it spread its wings and flew toward the viewport. The station's sensors recognized its biosignature and opened a small portal. The dragon disappeared into the star field beyond. Marcus returned to his routine, but something had changed. The corridors felt emptier. He found himself looking up, at the viewports, wondering if he'd done the right thing. 3 weeks later, the alarms started screaming. Marcus dropped his cleaning supplies and rushed to the nearest viewport. What he saw made his knees weak. Ships filled the space around. Kepler Station, not the sleek vessels of the known governments, but something older, more organic. They moved like living creatures, their surfaces rippling with the same opalescent scales he remembered. Dragon ships, hundreds of them. The station's commander was broadcasting surrender protocols when the first dragon materialized in the main corridor. It was magnificent, 30 feet long, with scales that captured and reflected every color in the spectrum. Behind it came others, their footsteps shaking the deck plating. Panic erupted. Diplomatic staff and security personnel fled in terror. But the dragons weren't attacking. They were searching, their great heads turning as they sniffed the air. The largest dragon, clearly the leader, stopped directly in front of Marcus. Its eyes, each the size of dinner plates, studied him with ancient intelligence. Then it lowered its massive head in what could only be a bow. A familiar chirping filled the air. The tiny hatchling Marcus had saved appeared, now grown to the size of a house cat but still bearing the same shimmering scales. It flew to Marcus's shoulder and nuzzled his cheek. The adult dragons began to purr, a sound like distant thunder that resonated through the station's hull. More dragons materialized, filling the corridors. Each one bowed to Marcus in turn. The lead dragon spoke, its voice like controlled lightning. "Human friend, you saved our lost prince when you could have ignored his plight. You asked for nothing." "Expected nothing. This is the way of true nobility." Marcus found his voice. I couldn't leave him to die." "Precisely." The dragon's eyes glowed with approval. "The dragons remember their debts, Marcus Chen. Your kindness has earned you something no human has possessed in 1,000 years, the friendship of the Starwing clan." Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The human janitor who had gained the allegiance of the dragons. Diplomatic relationships shifted overnight. Humanity, previously considered a minor species, suddenly found itself with the most powerful allies in known space. But Marcus Chen continued mopping floors on Kepler Station. The pay was still decent, the work was still honest, and now, occasionally, a young dragon would visit, perching on his cleaning cart as he worked. They would chirp softly to each other, and Marcus would smile, remembering that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of entire civilizations. The galaxy had learned something important that day: never underestimate a human's capacity for compassion, especially when they think no one is watching.